Most people think broccoli is one of the healthiest foods on earth, and honestly, they're not wrong. But here's the thing, nobody talks about almost 90% of people are eating broccoli completely wrong. Because of one simple mistake, they end up destroying the most powerful compound inside it. A compound scientists now believe can influence your metabolism, your brain, your genes, and possibly even how long you live, which means if you're eating broccoli every day, you could be activating one of the most powerful natural defense systems in your body. Or you might just be eating dead vegetables. Yeah, dead broccoli, not rotten, not expired, but biologically switched off. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that means, why most people accidentally throw away broccoli's real benefits, and the simple trick scientists use to actually unlock its power. Because without that trick, almost none of the benefits even kick in. The big misconception. Let's start with the biggest misconception people have about broccoli. Most people think it's healthy because it's packed with vitamin, fiber, and antioxidants, vitamin C, vitamin K, folate, all genuinely useful stuff. But here's what's interesting. That's not actually why scientists get so excited about broccoli. The real reason is something far more fascinating. Inside broccoli, there's a compound called sulforaphane. And sulforaphane works very differently from your typical nutrient. It doesn't just feed your body. Instead, it wakes up defense systems deep inside your cells. To understand why that's such a big deal, you first need to understand how plants actually evolved, why plants created these chemicals. Plants live in a pretty dangerous world. They can't run, they can't hide, and they definitely can't fight back. So over millions of years, plants came up with a completely different survival strategy, chemical defense, when insects chew on them. The plant releases special compounds designed to protect itself. These chemicals create stress signals for whatever's attacking. But something really interesting happens when those same signals enter the human body. Small amounts of these plant stress compounds can actually make our own cells stronger. Scientists call this hormesis, a small challenge that forces the body to level up. And sulforaphane is one of the most powerful examples of this we've ever found. The fasting mimetic effect. Now, this is where it gets genuinely fascinating, and because scientists discovered something pretty unexpected about sulforaphane. It activates many of the same pathways that fasting triggers. Normally, your body only enters deep repair mode when food starts running scarce. During a fast, cells begin clearing out damaged proteins. They fire up detox systems. They build up stress resistance. But sulforaphane appears to trigger some of those same protective responses even when you've just eaten a full meal. Scientists call this a caloric restriction mimetic, which basically means it tricks your cells into behaving as if food is in short supply. And when cells think resources are running low, they flip into survival mode. Repair ramps up. Defense systems come online, and the whole system runs more efficiently. Mitochondria and cellular energy. One of the biggest changes happens inside your mitochondria. Mitochondria are the tiny power plants inside your cells. Every move you make, every thought you have, every single heartbeat runs on mitochondrial energy. But mitochondria are surprisingly fragile. Over time, they collect damage. And when that happens, energy levels drop, fatigue creeps in, metabolism slows down. Sulforaphane appears to stimulate the pathways that help cells build more mitochondria, more power plants, more cellular resilience, more efficient metabolism, which is exactly why scientists are looking at sulforaphane in the context of aging and metabolic health. Broccoli and your genes. But broccoli's reach may go even deeper than that, because sulforaphane interacts with something incredibly important, your genes. Most people think of DNA as fixed, a blueprint set in stone from birth. But biology is way more dynamic than that. Your DNA contains thousands of genes, but not all of them are running at the same time. Some are switched on, others stay quiet. And the system controlling those switches is called epigenetics. Sulforaphane has been shown to influence those very signals. Specifically, It acts as something called an HDAC inhibitor, which means it can affect how tightly DNA is wound inside your cells. And when that packaging shifts, gene activity can shift too. The brain protection effect, but broccoli doesn't stop at the body. It also has a relationship with the brain. Most plant compounds never actually make it to brain tissue. The brain sits behind a highly selective filtration system called the blood-brain barrier. This barrier blocks the vast majority of substances from getting through, but sulforaphane can cross it. And once it's inside the brain, it activates antioxidant systems within neurons. This helps dial down oxidative stress and supports the brain's own natural defense mechanisms, which is why researchers are now studying sulforaphane in relation to brain fog, cognitive decline, and long-term neurological health. The hormesis paradox. But here's where the story gets a little counterintuitive, because with broccoli, more is not always better. The benefits of sulforaphane follow the hormesis principle. Small signals make the body stronger, but very high doses can overwhelm the system entirely, which means eating reasonable amounts of broccoli regularly is likely either beneficial, but loading up on massive doses of concentrated extracts isn't necessarily going to give you better results. Sometimes balance matters more than just going bigger. The sprout discovery. And now we get to one of the most surprising things scientists have found about broccoli. The broccoli you pick up at the grocery store is actually the weaker version of the plant. Researchers discovered that 3-day-old broccoli sprouts contain dramatically higher levels of glucosinolates, sometimes 20 to 50 times more than fully grown broccoli. These glucosinolates are the raw materials the body needs to produce sulforaphane, which means a small handful of sprouts can hold more potential sulforaphane than a large serving of the mature vegetable. This caught a lot of nutrition researchers completely off guard because it showed just how dramatically plant chemistry shifts during growth. The dead broccoli problem. But even that isn't the most surprising part, because the compound responsible for all of broccoli's benefits doesn't actually exist inside the plant while it's still whole. Broccoli contains 2 separate components. One is called glucoraphane. The other is an enzyme called myrosinase. When broccoli cells stay intact, these 2 compounds are kept apart. But the moment plant tissue is cut, crushed, or chewed, the cell walls break open. The compounds finally meet and a chemical reaction takes place. That reaction is what produces sulforaphane, the cooking mistake. Here's exactly where most people go wrong. Heat destroys the enzyme myrosinase, which means if broccoli is cooked too aggressively, the enzyme is gone before the reaction ever gets a chance to happen. No enzyme, no sulforaphane. The broccoli becomes biologically inactive in terms of this entire pathway. In other words, dead broccoli, when unfortunately, this is exactly how most people are cooking it. Boiling, over microwaving, long cooking times, all of it can wipe out the enzyme, out the activation. Hacks. The good news is there are some really simple ways around this. And the first is called the 40-minute rule. When you chop broccoli, the chemical reaction starts immediately. If you wait around 40 minutes before you cook it, sulforaphane has time to fully form, and once it's formed, it becomes much more resistant to heat. The second method is light steaming. Steam broccoli for just 1 to 3 minutes, enough to soften it without wiping out the enzyme. And the third method is honestly kind of brilliant. Even if your broccoli gets overcooked, you can actually restart the reaction. Just add a small amount of raw mustard seed powder. Mustard contains the exact same enzyme needed to trigger sulforaphane production, which means the reaction kicks off again almost immediately. Final conclusion. So if you eat broccoli every day and you prepare it the right way, you're not just eating a vegetable, you're activating a genuinely remarkable interaction between plant chemistry and human biology, a process that influences metabolism, supports cellular defense, and builds natural resilience over time. But the one thing to always keep in mind is this. Broccoli's most powerful compound doesn't come pre-made. It has to be activated. And sometimes the difference between unlocking everything it has to offer and destroying it completely comes down to something as simple as how you cook it.